That does it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Banfield starts now.
Everyone, and happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me on this show. I'm really glad you're here. There are some things that I want to tell you about and some anniversaries that I want to mark. And then there's this whole 500 plus day, holy cow, how has it been this long since moment I want to outline for you tonight. The first set of numbers that has been kind of chewing at me all day today is that it's been 8 months since Matthew Perry died. And okay, I hear you. I get it. Sometimes when a celebrity dies, there's just bigger headlines, period, because we all knew him. And guess what? He was our friend. Get it? Friend. The other thing that bugged me about Matthew Perry dying in an overdose in his hot tub was the whole notion of who gave him the drugs. Who gave him the drugs? Every time I see a national treasure dying and I feel the loss, I want to know who did it, right? Because I don't believe it's the addict. I believe it's the pusher. I love that 70s expression, the pusher. It's the dealers. It's the fentanyl folk. It's those people. And I got news for you. Looks like we may actually have somebody in the Matthew Perry death. Somebody may end up paying the price for the loss of our friend. I'm going to tell you all about what is being reported, where we are in that case, and I'm going to talk about the trend, too, of all the people we've lost. And how many people have been accountable or not. That's coming. Also, Karen Reid, here we are. It's verdict watch. I swear to you, I felt like that would be the last time I said that last night. Verdict watch. I figured tonight it was all about the verdict. But it's still about verdict watch. We are still in verdict watch for Karen Reid. I thought this one was a quickie, like quicker than OJ quickie. Not so. And not only that, when the verdict is being deliberated in the jury room, we're not allowed in. No one's allowed to hear them. You can't even put your ear up to the door. It's silence for the rest of us. It could be crazy in there, but it's silence for the rest of us, except for in the Karen Reid case. Because today, it was not silent. It was like, phew. It was fireworks in the courtroom while the jury was deliberating. So they're in the I hope they didn't hear what was happening in the courtroom, because they'd have been like, what up? What, we're supposed to be, what's going on in there? I thought it was over except for us. I will explain everything that happened. Then I'm also going to show you a moment where the judge ripped into Karen Reid today. Tell you all about it in a moment. Also, do you know the name Israel Keys? I am with you. I did not know that name, and I am pretty surprised that I don't, given the fact that he's like a really sick and twisted serial killer who buried kill kits all around the country. Kill kits, with a lot of really awful stuff in it, preparing for the kills in the future. There's something more about this guy, too. We think it's 8 murders. We think it's 8 murders. Officially, he admitted to 8. But I think there's maybe close to a half dozen more. And it's not that I think that. It's that a couple of podcasters who are really, really good at their job have a lot of evidence. And they also discovered some really weird information about stuff written in blood under his prison bunk. You are about to hear from these podcasters, and you have heard from them before, because they are the famous folks behind that wildly successful podcast Down the Hill about the Delphi murders. They're on the show tonight. I'm going to talk to them about Israel Keys and their brand new podcast, Deviant. All of that is coming ahead. First, this. We all knew where we were when that headline hit. If you were like me, I don't think you were, we were all gathered around our TV sets, staring in disbelief. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was dead, and he was only 50. If you can believe this, that headline came at us 15 years ago. I know, I feel it too. It was actually 15 years ago yesterday, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Almost everybody thought the same thing. How could somebody that young, that successful, that rich, that vibrant be dead? And the answer? Propofol, a lethal narcotic that his private doctor administered to him to help him sleep. That doctor eventually went to jail for what he did, helping a celebrity get drugs the celebrity wasn't allowed to have. And frankly, thank God. Thank God Conrad Murray did time for that. Because I'll be honest with you, we have lost a lot of our national treasures to illegal drugs. And there haven't been that many people who actually paid the price for it. I want to go back all the way to Marilyn Monroe, 1962. Her overdose kind of rocked the world on its axis, right? We lost that. Like, she's posters, she's everything. She OD'd. Nobody was arrested for giving her those drugs. All right, I'll one-up you. How about Elvis? I don't even know if it's an up or a down. I don't know. Maybe equal. But how about Elvis, the king? He died in 1977. And the doctor who was accused of over-prescribing Elvis, he was acquitted. Nobody paid the price for us losing Elvis. And then there was John Belushi, one of my favorites. He died in 1982. The woman who admitted to injecting Belushi with a deadly drug, she actually did serve time. But if you thought that that would be the turning point where enablers would be charged and convicted of providing help to kill addicts, well, you could think again. It was not the turning point. Anna Nicole Smith, she OD'd in 2007. Her doctor, her psychiatrist, her attorney, they were all charged with conspiracy to provide her with drugs. Not one of them was convicted. Philip Seymour Hoffman. I absolutely adored Philip Seymour Hoffman. He OD'd 10 years ago. I can't believe it, 10 years. At least 4 people were arrested and charged for selling him the deadly heroin that killed him. Guess how many people did time? None. So let's fast forward to 2018, when rapper Mac Miller OD'd on cocaine and oxys that were laced with fentanyl. Maybe something changed, because one of his dealers actually, he got walloped. 17-year prison sentence. And then 3 years ago, actor Michael K. Williams, he OD'd on heroin, and prosecutors sent his dealer to prison for 10 years. So what do you suppose is going to happen to the people who gave Matthew Perry the ketamine that ended up causing him to drown? Perry was literally our friend, right? Friend to all of us. And when he OD'd in his hot tub last October at age 54, it was yet another national gut punch. But today, there is reporting that the Los Angeles County Sheriff and the DEA may actually be close to arresting someone in his death. People magazine is reporting a law enforcement source says the investigation is, quote, nearing its conclusion, and that, quote, multiple people should be charged. So if that's the case, maybe we've come a long way, baby. Maybe things are rapidly changing since the deaths of Marilyn Monroe and Janis Joplin produced little more than a shrug. This topic is near and dear to my NewsNation colleague Elizabeth Vargas's heart, not only because she has covered these tragedies for decades, but because she's openly shared her own battles with addiction in her New York Times best-selling book, Between Breaths, a memoir of panic and addiction. She is also on the board of directors of the Partnership to End Addiction, and she interviewed Matthew Perry less than a year before she died. I also really happen to like Elizabeth Vargas a lot, so I'm really glad you're on the show. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Ashleigh. Good to be with you.
So let's just start with your reaction to the People magazine report that we actually might get some arrests in the death of Matthew Perry.
To be honest, I'm a little surprised. The death has been ruled an accident. Ketamine is not illegal. It is used off-label for mental health uses. In fact, Matthew Perry was being prescribed and going through ketamine therapy during his recovery. It is not considered a violation of somebody's recovery to undergo ketamine therapy under a doctor's orders, but that is not what was in his system when he died. He had last had his ketamine infusion many days before his death, and it only stays in your body for a few hours. So we know he procured the drug somehow from somebody. And clearly, police, the sheriff's office, the DEA have investigated and believe that they have a case against several people, is what the reporting is thus far, to press charges against them, which is great. But, I loved your opening, but Ashleigh, more than 100,000 Americans die every year from drug overdoses in this country. And I would venture to say very, very few of the people who sold them those drugs are ever prosecuted.
So that was my point of doing this whole setup with all these very big, shiny celebrity names, that we are starting to see some very big prison sentences. And I don't know if that's trickling down into the non-celebrity names, but are we at a point, Elizabeth, in this culture in America where we're saying enough is enough? We have had it with the fentanyl deaths. We have had it with the dealers running the show, that maybe we're going to start actually bringing down the hammer and putting people away for over a decade. And I'm not sure if it's going to make them think twice or not, but are we at least changing how we look at drug overdoses?
I sure hope so. I mean, listen, fentanyl is a scourge in this country right now. And we know that the drug cartels are making fentanyl with the help of the Chinese government, which is quietly rewarding pharmaceutical companies to make the precursors and ship them over to the cartels to press pills, and then fled the southern border with these pills. This is a huge issue in this country because it's touched so many people. Nearly everybody has someone in their family or somebody that they know, somebody they work with who has struggled with drug addiction. And it's worth noting that many people, like Matthew Perry, become addicted to opioids initially by being prescribed painkillers for a legitimate, real purpose. Matthew had a jet ski accident in 1997. He was prescribed Percocet. He said he took his first Percocet and he was hooked. I just interviewed on my show 2 nights ago the mother of a woman, the mother of a young boy, a teenager who had major surgery his senior year in high school. They prescribed OxyContin as a pain reliever. She gave it to him. She administered the pills according to the dose. He became hooked. He spent the next 15 years in and out of rehabs and overdosed and died. She found his body on the bathroom floor. And she's now started a foundation to go into hospitals so there are advocates to help people navigate, painkillers, and so that they don't get hooked. But the point is so many people in this country become hooked on opioids and eventually turn to illegal opioids like heroin or other drugs that then have fentanyl in them because they actually were prescribed by a doctor. We know that Matthew was given ketamine by a doctor. And obviously he liked the effects enough that he got it and procured it on his own and took it when he shouldn't have. It's worth noting he didn't die of ketamine. He died because he took the ketamine and he was in a hot tub and he drowned. He lost consciousness and slipped underneath the surface of the water. The ketamine itself didn't kill him, but he had acute levels of it in his system when he died.
Going to be hard. Causation is big in the law. And if someone's going to go after people who prescribe or, supply illegally any kinds of drugs, it's going to be an uphill battle in that case.
Well,
real quickly, I only have about 20 seconds left. But
I was going to say they might charge them with selling ketamine illegally, but I'm not sure they can charge him for the death because of the causality there, as you just pointed out.
And my mind always goes to felony murder. If you commit a felony and somebody dies, boom, you're on the hook. Okay, 20 seconds left. You did interview Matthew Perry less than a year before he died. Just quickly give me the feel for that conversation.
Boy, it was a very long conversation. I did it in front of a live audience. It's a podcast. I do a podcast, Heart of the Matter, for the partnership. Anybody can listen to the whole conversation. He was remarkably honest and candid about his fight with addiction. It is a harrowing story. He thinks $9 million on rehab. He was in and out of 15 different rehabs. He nearly died a few years before I interviewed him. He was in the hospital after his colon burst. He really, really didn't want to be remembered for the actor on Friends, our friend Chandler. He wanted to be remembered as somebody who helped other people get clean and sober. And, he did that. There are actors who he helped get sober, like Hank Azaria. Even while Matthew was still relapsing, he was helping others get sober. He opened a sober house in Malibu. Listen, addiction is a cunning and baffling disease. It can get anybody It crosses all socioeconomic lines, rich, poor, black, white, male, female. You can really be hooked by this. And it got its grips in him, and it never let go, sadly.
I've had it in my family. I know what you're talking about. And I'm just so thankful that people like Matthew and you are so open about it. My executive producer, while you were mentioning this, just said if anybody's out there, they need to listen to Matthew Perot's audiobook as well, because it's a phenomenal account. Really, like you said, very open and honest. Elizabeth Vargas, thank you so much. Be on the show more. Come on more often.
Oh, anytime. Anything for you, Ash.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. I also now want to bring in somebody else, Corey Ferrantino. She is a California criminal defense attorney and trial lawyer who defended the man who admitted to being part of the conspiracy to distribute the fentanyl that killed Grammy-nominated rapper and producer Mac Miller. Corey, thank you so much for being on the show. I want to ask you specifically a little bit about what I was talking to Elizabeth about, and that is that I sense we're at a turning point, that authorities are going to really start bringing down the hammer far more often and far harder when it comes to those who are behind the supply chain of deadly drugs. And I know that your client, Ryan Reeves, pleaded guilty to being a middleman in the fentanyl that killed Mac Miller. Why did he take a plea? Was it because of the fear that there's just no more slaps on the wrist?
Hi, Ashleigh. Thank you for having me tonight. What really changed about probably 5, 6, 7 years ago before the Mac Miller case is they moved these prosecutions from state court to federal court. In state court, they were trying to prosecute these individuals on a murder theory, and they were having trouble proving intent to kill. And so they moved most of them to federal court, where they only have to prove conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance. But if it results in death, then there's a mandatory minimum of 20 years. And that's what my client was facing. If a person has a prior sales offense, which my client didn't, they're then facing life in prison. And there's no parole in federal prison, so you die in federal prison. So my client was a user. He really wasn't that different than Mac Miller if you took out, obviously, Mac Miller's fame. And as far as the use went, he was a horribly addicted opioid addict, and he delivered drugs for a supplier in order to support his habit. He used the same pills that Mac Miller used. Fentanyl is really like Russian roulette. The pills are not made in a way that each dose is the same. You never know what you're going to get, and one pill can kill somebody. Back in 2018, Oxy addicts really thought they were buying Oxy on the street. They didn't know they were buying fentanyl like people do now. And so he believed he was dealing in oxycodone, and he had no idea that they were eventually sold to Mac Miller until a year later when he was arrested on the case and he was told about it. They traced cell phone records and text messages and things like that to find out who was involved. Because of the equities involved, it's a tragic case all around, and all of these are. But obviously, these famous people bring it to the forefront for all of us. And probably cross over to people who don't deal with addiction and don't have loved ones, but they then lose someone that they love, that's a media figure. And so it's just tragic all around. And I think because of the equities with my client's long history of addiction, not knowing it was fentanyl, even though the law didn't require him to know that under federal law, that they then agreed to reduce the charge to conspiracy to distribute controlled substance, admitting to the facts that that drug led to the death of Mac Miller. And then the judge had freedom to sentence my client somewhere between probation and 20 years. And he settled on about 10 and a half years. So that was
10.9, 10.9. Yeah. But yeah. I will be fascinated, Corey, to find out what happens next in Matthew Perry's case. We're at a point now where the reporting suggests it's close. If they do come up with charges, it'll be curious to find out what happens. Will it be a plea? Will it be a trial? Would he actually prevail in trial, or they prevail in trial? But we'll have to have you back. Thank you for this. Really appreciate it, Corey. Thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. The jury, by the way, speaking of trials, still hard at it in the Karen Reed murder trial. Still trying to decide if she's a killer. And if she is a killer, what kind of killer? But that did not stop her lawyers from firing up against the judge today. And it got so bad that judge ended up ripping into Karen. I'm going to show you what happened next. We are in the home stretch in the Karen Read murder trial. And I will be honest, I totally thought that I was going to be covering the verdict tonight and bouncing in between analysts and lawyers and all the people affected by the case. But no verdict. No verdict today. No verdict yesterday. That does not, however, mean that it was quiet outside the jury room. Hell no. Her lawyers were going at it in the courtroom over the little slips of paper that the court gives to the jurors to fill out when they've made up their minds, guilty or not guilty. Usually this is really boilerplate stuff, folks. Not today. Here is the problem. Karen Read's jurors were given 3 of those slips of paper. First 2, those seemed okay. They were pretty straightforward. Slip number 1 had murder in the 2nd degree, not guilty or guilty. Check one off. Slip number 2 says leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death, not guilty or guilty. Check one off. But slip number 3 was a little bit hanky. It says manslaughter while operating motor vehicle under the influence. And then there's 4 choices. There's not guilty, then there's guilty, and then the slip offers up 2 other charges entirely. They're called lesser includeds. And Karen Read's lawyers say this is a bit confusing to the jury because it doesn't include a not guilty line next to each of those lesser included charges. And they say that the jurors actually might think that if they vote not guilty to the main charge up above, then they are going to be forced to pick one of the lesser includeds down below. So Read's lawyers said that that slip needs to be changed. And when the judge disagreed with that request, things started to get nasty. Really heated. So heated, in fact, that Karen Read ended up making some faces. And the judge saw, and the judge went off. Here is what that moment looked like.
So why are we out here?
Your Honor, I just saw the verdict forms, and as we discussed yesterday, the amendments that the court indicated it would make on the verdict
Oh, no.
Made.
Okay, I did not say I'd make it. I said I'd think about it. I said I was tired and I needed to think about it.
You said before you were tired and you needed to think about it was you agree that there needs to be not guilty options for the subordinate charges under count 2.
I said that it made sense to me, but no, I did not change it upon looking at it because the verdict slip, this verdict slip as submitted to the jury, is exactly how it always is in Massachusetts.
I ask you a question then. I don't really care how it always is in Massachusetts. I care about whether or not it's appropriate.
It's appropriate.
Different things.
It's appropriate.
It's almost like the court is directing a verdict of the subordinate charges.
Okay. I disagree with you. Ms. Tianetti, you've seen verdict slips exactly like this. Okay?
I actually haven't really.
Have you had no lesser includeds?
No, we've always had lesser includeds, but I have not seen a verdict slip there where not guilty is not an option for the lesser includeds.
Okay. I disagree with you. All right.
I don't see that.
Excuse me? This is funny, Ms. Read? All right. We're done.
Oof. By the way, I've been in a lot of courtrooms. That is the equivalent of going off. Judges don't usually do that. Is this funny, Miss Read? We're done. They don't do that. That's like the equivalent of going off on somebody. NewsNation's national correspondent Alex Capriello was inside that courthouse today, and he is outside that courthouse tonight.
Ashleigh, it seems as if the hundreds of Karen Read supporters have given her a certain level of assurance each and every day. Outside of the courthouse, she walks in smiling and thanking them. And then inside the courtroom, that level of confidence seems to have caught the attention of the judge. Witnesses inside the courtroom say she was smirking during an argument between her defense team and the judge. At one point, you could see her turn around, smile at someone in the gallery, and then roll her eyes. The judge didn't like that, saying, "Is this funny, Ms. Read?" before abruptly calling an end to the on-the-record session. In the end, the defense got their way, and the judge changed the verdict slip to ease their concerns. Other than that, it was a relatively quiet day of deliberations. One of the few questions the jury raised had nothing to do with the evidence at the trial, but rather their schedule. The jury member says they had a long-standing commitment today and asked to leave early. The jury deliberated for just under 9 hours total and were excused around 3:30 in the afternoon. But the jury did ask to see a report from the Special Emergency Response Team, one of the very first responders on the crime scene. Also known as CERT, it took that team nearly 3 hours to get to the body due to the blizzard-like weather all night long. The head of CERT, Kevin O'Hara, testified earlier in this trial that the crime scene was left unguarded until they got there. The defense has said they believe various members of Massachusetts law enforcement planted broken pieces of taillight at the scene. But the judge denied the jury's request to see any sort of CERT report, saying all the evidence they're allowed to see is already in their possession. Verdict Watch continues tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. Ashleigh?
Okay, Alex Capriello is going to continue watching it for us. And can I just give you a little side note from someone who's been covering law and crime for 3.5 decades? Tomorrow's Thursday. And I can guarantee, almost, that there'll be a verdict by Friday. Why? Because no jury likes to stick around for weekends. The number of Friday verdicts that I've covered in my life leads me to bet the farm, oftentimes, that we'll have a verdict at least by Friday. Okay, still to come. What happened at that yoga resort in Paradise, the one that Gwyneth Paltrow has been raving about? A Chicago woman disappeared from there, and now her family says they have narrowed down the last spot where her cell phone pinged. And let me tell you, it is nowhere anybody would be doing yoga. Her family joins me next. It is called Paradise Island for a reason. People come from all over the world to bask in the Bahamian sun, to rip down the death-defying water slides at the Atlantis Resort, to gamble in the glitzy casinos there, or if you are Taylor Casey, to immerse yourself in the halcyon zen of the Shivananda Yoga Retreat. Taylor told her friends and her family that she was really looking forward to the trip, not just being at this really nice retreat, but also bringing back all the knowledge that she would learn back to Chicago, where she's from. And by the way, this retreat is no joke. Even Gwyneth Paltrow raves about the Shivananda on her Goop website. It's a must-go, she writes. And so Taylor went. But for a full week now, no one knows where Taylor is. She seems to have just, vanished in Paradise. Her mom and some other family members flew to the Bahamas to meet with the police there. All of this amid a State Department warning about travel to that island paradise and the high crime rate that is just a few miles from that retreat. Tonight, the family tells us that Taylor's phone last pinged in the ocean. Our senior national correspondent, Brian Enton, is live in the Bahamas tonight. That's distressing news, Brian. I'm not going to lie. I didn't expect to hear that piece of information. But the family seems to be strangely quiet. Have you been able to talk to any members of them?
So we were able to talk to her niece, which you're going to hear in a moment. Other members of the family did arrive. Somebody's got a bug in my eye. Did arrive here in the Bahamas today. They were supposed to come yesterday. Their flight was canceled, so they got here later today. We know that they met with police today, got an update on the investigation, and we did learn that new clue, obviously not what the family wanted to hear, that her phone last pinged in the ocean, according to the family, on Wednesday, and that the phone was even found in the ocean. Why would she go in the ocean with her phone? There's still a lot of questions there, a lot of missing pieces, but according to the family, the phone did ping inside the ocean. I want you to hear a little bit of what her niece told me, a little more about the timeline that the family has been able to piece together.
Well, we spoke to her Tuesday, and she was fine. She was normal. She was having a good time. She told us how she was enjoying herself. She sent us pictures on the beach, how she was loving the beach. And then Thursday, we got a call. Because my grandma actually texted her Wednesday, and no response, but we didn't think nothing of it. Thursday, we got a call from the Ashleigh, the yoga retreat, saying that Taylor hadn't been seen, that she had missed all the classes, if we heard from her or figured, where she might have been.
So they got the news, Ashleigh, from the yoga retreat. But they say up until she stopped communicating with them, she was sending pictures of herself on the beach. You know, she was having a great time. There was nothing unusual that stuck out to them.
It is weird. I mean, yeah, to have somebody having a wonderful time and then all of a sudden to go radio silent. Are the police saying anything different today than they did yesterday?
Yeah. Well, they are now talking, which is interesting. They had sort of a mini press conference earlier. I think the pressure is sort of on now. That the media and the international media is now covering the case. So they had this press conference, said that they've been investigating, they've had drones, they've had divers, they've met with the family. Listen to what the police said really just a little while ago.
We met with the family of Taylor Casey, who was reported missing to our agency on Thursday, the 20th of June, 2024. Since that report was made, we have conducted extensive investigation into the matter. This afternoon, we updated the family of Taylor as to where we are in the investigation. We have a very, very good relationship. They're very, very pleased with the investigations thus far. We used our drone technology, we used our canine, we've used our divers, we've used a number of resources. And so our investigation continues into this matter.
So it's an active investigation, Ashleigh. We heard that there were police officers back out at the ashram at the yoga retreat today, continuing to investigate and look around in that area, that part of the beach on the western part of Paradise Island.
Okay, so I know that island really well. My brother actually lives there, and I go there all the time. I didn't know about the Shivananda retreat. I haven't been to a yoga retreat there, but I saw you walking the beach up to the resort last night. I thought it was very clever of you to be able to come from the beach side. And I saw that you left your card with the people who were there. Did they get back to you at all? Are they tight-lipped? Are they helpful? Like, what's the vibe there?
Yeah, so they did get back to me. And by the way, I've been here a bunch too when I was a kid, and this is the western part of the island. So the kind of the opposite side of where Atlantis is, there's not even a road to get down there. You either have to get there by boat or you have to walk along the beach. So it's kind of this secluded part of Paradise Island. And yeah, I tried to get them to talk to us yesterday. They weren't happy that we showed up. They did release a statement to us today saying they're cooperating in the investigation. And then they also added, and I want to read you this, it said, I should point out that the ashram is a place of meditation and learning, and visits by reporters will be disruptive for our guests and interrupt our teaching. As a result, we are not allowing reporters to visit. So obviously, they don't want us to go back there. When we were there yesterday, there were people meditating who were not happy to be asked about this missing woman. I did notice, by the way, though, that just yesterday, actually, I think after our visit, they did post on their Instagram page a picture and trying to, drum up some interest so people can help with the search.
Yeah, it's definitely bad for meditation, but it's also bad for business if that happens. So I can understand that ashram is probably none too interested to have national news there. Brian, keep us posted. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate you making that trip.
Thanks, Ash.
Okay, still to come on this program. He buried kill kits all over the USA. And he took prepping for murder to a whole new level. His victims got a really good look at what was in those kits. Weapons, and shovels, and plastic bags, and Drano. The rest of us, though, we found out about him too late. So how did Israel Keys notch so many kills before the police tracked him down? And actually, maybe the better question is, what did he write in his own blood that tells us we don't even know the half of what he actually did? Two of the best podcasters in the world are live with me next to preview all of his deviant evil.
It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. There's only one Sotyktu, so ask for it by name. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
Deviant. That is defined as a person whose actions are so beyond most human comprehension. That actually is like a perfect description for a guy named Israel Keyes. He might be one of the most prolific and meticulous serial killers of all time. Officially, he admitted to killing 3 people, but that's low. Authorities actually believe the number could be as high as 11. The killings happened all across this country, from Alaska to Vermont to New York. And here's the weird part. Investigators say that Israel Keyes buried these kill kits in all sorts of different parts of the country. Sometimes he actually buried his kill kits years in advance so that he could use them on future victims. We might actually never know the true extent of his murders because Israel Keyes decided to kill himself in 2012. But before he died, he did something very, very twisted. He left a message written in his own blood under his prison bunk. Drawings of 11 skulls next to a pentagram and the words, "We are one." There's also chilling recordings that were made during Keyes' interview with the FBI. Take a listen to this.
There is no one who knows me or who has ever known me who knows anything about me, really. They know they're going to tell you something that does not line up with anything I tell you because I'm 2 different people, basically. And the only person who knows about what I'm telling you, the kind of things I'm telling you, is me.
How long have you been 2 different people?
Long time. 14 years.
That audio clip is included in a brand new true crime podcast called Deviant. The series features some of the most evil people to ever walk the planet, including one Israel Keyes. And I'm joined now by the 2 hosts of Deviant, Andrew Aydin and Dan Zimatovich. They also produced the wildly successful podcast Down the Hill, which had millions and millions of downloads and listeners, and they're live with me now. And full disclosure, Drew Aydin and I have worked together before, so I can tell you right now he's one of the finest people on the planet. Thank you so much for being here to both of you. And Drew, I will start with you because I know you better.
Okay. Sure.
Israel Keyes' first known murder was in 2009. And then his first suspected murder was in 2001, but he wasn't caught until 2012. How did he get away with doing this for so long?
Well, frankly, Ashleigh, and thanks for having me, and thanks for having Dan and I. Honestly, Israel Keyes was a planner. It's like you said at the top of the segment. This was a guy who used meticulous planning that I don't think the FBI, I don't think the police, I don't think any law enforcement agency has ever seen before. And when you look at the way this guy operated for years, one of the keys that made him so prolific was that he lived a life of constant motion. You know, we looked into the FBI documents. We looked at the travel that he accumulated over the years of when he was doing these things, and he was constantly on the move. And we're also talking about a guy, as you said at the top, which is he buried kill kits all over the country, Wyoming, Vermont, and he did it years ahead of time, and then would go back to Vermont in 2011, 2 years after he buried this kill kit in the woods, and carried out the murder of Bill and Lorraine Currier. So calculated, meticulous, and planning are the reason why this guy got away with this for so long.
But also, like, super random. And Dan, I don't get it. I don't get the sheer randomness of how he chose these poor, unsuspecting victims.
Yeah, Ashleigh, that's one of the things that made him so different. You know, most serial killers have a type, right? Big, small, blonde, brunette. You know, they have a pattern. And Israel Keyes, along with other things, some of the things that Andrew just mentioned, defied all those expectations, defied all those regular things. And the truly scary thing about him was it could have been anyone. It could have been anywhere. And we talked to one of the people who investigated him and who was in the room with him for all these interrogations, FBI Special Agent Jolene Godin. We actually have a little piece of tape for one of the things she told us.
Most serial killers, serial offenders have a type. You know, they like women between 18 and 25 who are blonde or, you know, something like that. And it became very evident in our conversations with Keyes that didn't matter. it really didn't matter who the person was, their age.
No victimology whatsoever.
None at all. It was really all about opportunity.
So bizarre. But Drew, you guys also, jump in here. You guys also spoke to people who knew this guy when he was a teenager. Any difference when he was young to when he ended up being so prolific as a killer?
I think what we wanted to do with the show, obviously, is to, beyond just talk about what he did, we were trying to get to the root, right, and really understand some of the early years of this guy's life. And so we spoke to a woman by the name of Desiree Smith, and she was as an early young teen, in Colville, Washington, where Israel Keyes grew up. They grew up in a very strict, fundamentalist, religion organization, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it was it was rooted in a lot of tenets of white supremacy, anti-Semitism. She has since renounced all of that. She's no longer a part of the community. But she talked about one of the times that she went on what essentially was a date with him. They went to this lunch that was kind of an organized event of some kind by this church, and she talked about what it was like being at that date with him. So here it is.
He kind of didn't put off the best vibe. He was kind of creepy and just very socially awkward, but not in like an endearing way, in a creepy way. Later in life, when I found out he became a killer, it disturbed me partly because I thought to myself, literally, I could have been a victim.
Oh my goodness, I'm so binging this. Andrew Iden and Dan Samatovich, I can't thank you enough. You're at it again. I suspect this is going to be another big blockbuster podcast. Thank you so much for being on tonight, and really appreciate you letting us
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate
watch these sound bites as well.
Sure thing. Thanks so much.
And I can't wait for your next one, too, because I know that's going to be coming, too. All right, folks. So there's a couple of big things that are happening this week. A big Brian Kohberger thing is happening tomorrow. It's something that we've been waiting 544 days for. But the first presidential debate is also happening tomorrow in primetime from Atlanta, Georgia. Biden versus Trump. We're going to be airing it right here starting at 8 p.m. Eastern with our own Chris Cuomo, who is leading our coverage. So I want to make sure that you watch that, and then you come back here on Friday, because I'm going to give you all the Kohberger news, plus a big Friday night show, because that's what we do on Fridays. But the whole business about Chris Cuomo doing the debate thing tomorrow, he's also coming up next. So stick around for his show.
Hello, I am Chris Cuomo, and it is time for me to make my witness. What do you say? Let's get after it. Here's my food for thought, all right? We are in a weird place, my brothers and sisters. And by we, I mean most of us who are trapped by some of us. The fringe domination. You know it, I know it,